We gather here today to pay tribute to and to celebrate the life of Tim Young. The Iron Horse is the perfect place for us to come together, for Tim's spirit will forever reside in all the musical halls, coffee houses, and musical establishments in Northampton. This place had a special spot in Tim's heart. So know in your hearts that his spirit is with us this day and every day. As we begin to celebrate the life of Tim Young, we are free to pour out our grief, release our anger, face our emptiness, and know that God is present with us, embracing us with arms that are wide open, ready to accept our burden of sorrow over the loss of Tim. We come to comfort and to support one another in our common loss. We have come to be assured that God has not taken Tim. God has received Tim into heaven. Let us pray. Holy God, whose ways are not our ways, and whose thoughts are not our thoughts, grant that your Holy Spirit may intercede for us with sighs too deep for human words. Heal our wounded hearts, made heavy by sorrow. Through the veil of our tears and the silence of our emptiness, assure us again that ear has not heard, nor eye seen, nor human imagination envisioned what you have prepared for your beloved children. Amen. And now we are going to have a passing of the peace with a fist bump. And Meg is coming up here to demonstrate for us.
So this is such a great community here. I wanted you to all make contact with your neighbors. The way this works is you give a blessing, the peace of the Lord be always with you. And then the person you give it to says that with thy spirit. But instead of clasping hands, we're going to do So the peace of the Lord be always with you, and with thy spirit to your neighbor, and fist bump.
Now for a reading of some scripture. If the Spirit moves you, I invite you to read this sacred word along with me. First from Matthew 11, 28 to 30. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And Psalm 100. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come into God's presence with singing. Know that the Lord is God. It is God that made us, and we are God's. We are God's people, and the sheep of God's pasture. Enter God's gates with thanksgiving, and courts with praise. Give thanks to the Lord. Bless God's name, for the Lord is good. God's steadfast love endures forever, and God's faithfulness to all generations. In Psalm 115, verse 16, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And Isaiah 40, 30 to 31. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Amen.
Tim had eyebrows that could move a million times a minute. They were big and bushy, so it was hard not to notice. How did he do that? I tried to do it myself, and I can't even begin to approximate it. What fueled that? Total wonderment at the world. I think it was being in a constant state of excitement. We called him the Mad Bomber because he was always on the move. He knew everything going on in town, would go to every event. For a long time after I left home, I would get the Tim report every time I came home to visit. He would tell me about every new restaurant or store, about each one that had closed down, who of our high school friends he had seen, and what they were up to. I guess that was the precursor to the Tim Young Entertainment Report. He used to watch World Federation Wrestling on TV, roller derby, which always surprised me, because he was such a gentle person. He didn't have a mean bone in his body, but he watched it every weekend. He liked being part of the crowd. It didn't feel like he was that much older than us. He always had a youthful energy, playfulness, regardless of what he was feeling inside. He never complained, even though there was plenty he could have complained about. He got mad at me sometimes, but I rarely saw him get mad at other people. He struggled as a deaf man in a hearing world, but he never gave up on it. He always wanted to participate, even though he might be completely cut off from most of the conversation going on. He had the most enthusiastic smile on the face of the planet. That huge, wide, Timmy grin, with a twinkle in his eye, always accompanied with a quick shake of his head. Pure glee. He wasn't proud. He didn't care all that much about career or status. He didn't care for worldly things. He just wanted friendship. No hidden agendas, no demands, love in its simplest form. When we were kids, he was always fascinated by things floating. Bubbles, milkweed seeds, dandelions, even little pieces of thread. He'd blow them away on their journey and watch them drift away. I used to think it was the movement that he found so intriguing. But now I think it was the fact that they were airborne. And now, Tim, you're airborne too.
I too have something to read, but I want to say a few things before I read this. As much to practice keeping my composure as anything else, but I'd like to start with some thanks. I will miss a lot of people by name in doing this, I'm sure, but I'm only a fraction as well connected in this community as Tim became. And so I only know a few names to even mention. I'd like to thank Eric for hosting the event here today and for all his support and companionship to Tim over the years, as well as Al, who had the misfortune to find Tim. But I think Tim would probably say if he could have chosen who would find him, he might have chosen Al. Tim Young was my brother. In fact, as many of you know, he was actually my older twin brother, fraternal obviously. Now, just a few months short of our 60th birthday, here to memorialize his passing, I have already started to acknowledge and will continue to acknowledge the other half of the truth of this brotherhood. I was not really a brother to Tim. As all of you who knew and befriended Tim know, he embraced his life on his own terms, and he lived it the best way he could and with the most he could get out of it. He was an unfailingly cheerful and good-hearted person who relished the company of others and demanded nothing more of them than their company and fellowship. He took the cards life dealt him, and he embraced his life on those terms and made them his own terms. For me, that's the lesson and example of Tim's life. But for me, I never learned to accept his life on the terms that were dealt to him, or to accept him, therefore, on his own terms. I was always conscious of the inability to communicate and relate on my terms, and always conscious, even today, of the possibilities life denied him. I was focused on the half-empty part of his glass, and as a result, I was not a brother to him. I denied him my company. I denied myself his company, and now I'm left with regrets. As far as I've ever been able to tell, Tim lived without regrets. He didn't see his glass as half empty. And in fact, although he could fully express the young family's stubbornness gene, if you tried to get him to do something about what you saw as the half-empty part, he did not really see his glass as half-empty or half-full. All he asked was to keep us company, and if you kept him company, his glass was full. So I thank all of you who accepted him on his own terms as he was, and kept him good company. You made a life he found full. I'm not a religious man, but I do look forward to keeping him better company again one day, and to seeing his sunny, artless smile, and seeing the community of friends he made. I can now celebrate his life instead of regret it. Thank you. I also want to thank our minister for presiding over this. I think you struggled, maybe I shouldn't say this about my sisters, but you struggled to find a religious bone in our bodies. But this is the sort of event where I think her contribution makes a great deal of difference, and I want to thank her for that.
At this time, we'd like to have a time of open microphones. So if anyone wants to come share a story or a memory, we invite you to come forward. Or a song.
Let me start with a confession. I didn't know Timothy Young's name. He was just this nice guy who would approach me and tell me something was going on. And if I didn't see him before the event, not to worry, he'd be at the event, I'd see him there. Or I'd see him at Stop and Shop. He was everywhere. And I'm amazed, having not really known him, how touched I've been by his passing. I had no expectation, I never thought about it, but why would I care? And yet, somehow I do, and I know many of you who only knew him slightly feel the same way. There was this presence, there was this goodness in him that just we all saw. I have no doubt that in heaven right now, as we're meeting here, there's some good soul being stopped and being told that there's a talented new harpist performing. You've got to go see her. Don't miss it. And whereas heaven now has a town crier, Northampton is missing its town crier. And so I have a proposal to make, which I hope you'll all support, that the mayor of this town, the new one, the old one, the mayor, just as they've appointed a Northampton poet laureate, we now appoint yearly the Timothy Young Northampton Town Crier. And that person will have the responsibility, I take that as agreement, will have the responsibility of promoting cultural events throughout Northampton. The person won't have to go up to everybody they see. I mean, they can use email. But I think that would be a wonderful way to remember Tim, the Timothy Young Northampton Town Crier. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Billy White. A very good friend of Tim Young. I've known Tim since 1978. He was Tim Young. To me, he was really 81's family member. He's 81's sister brother. Why? Because he treats everyone like that. Everyone is his family. He never judged any of us right. That's one wonderful thing about him. He's always visiting people. He's always helping people. He's always there for us. There were days I would go visit him. I would say, "Hi, how are you?" He's fine. He's very fine. Never complains of a bad day. Always says good day. We don't know when he's having a bad day, right? We never know that. It's not only Clark School students that he's friends with and that's his family. It's the healing people too, who are his family. The whole community of Northampton. He had so many friends that he wanted to let them all know that there's an art class or something, or a fair, something's happening. It doesn't matter what town. If Amos was having a food festival, he'd tell us. Why? It's something fun to do. He wanted to keep people motivated to do something, have some fun with their lives. You could never find Tim Young a very depressing person ever. That's one of the reasons why I loved him, because he always had that smile on his face. He showed the people that there's something good happening in our lives. He showed people there's a way to make your life happy. He showed people there's always something to do. There's always a place to go. There's always a friendship inside his heart. He always had room in his heart for other people. It just keeps growing. His heart just keeps growing. And he makes it bigger and bigger. He never closed his doors on us. He would never do that. If he saw something was wrong, a stranger, he'd go and help. It's amazing how much Tim Young did for all of us. Sometimes, some of us wondered what was in Tim Young's mind. It was nothing but happiness and a good heart inside him. It's hard to describe who Tim really is because Tim himself is the most amazing person you could ever meet. Very hard to describe him, but there's so many good words about him. I want to say that Tim Young is our family and will always be forever. Thank you very much.
I used to see Tim on the UMass campus in the 80s when I went to college there, and he was always at the outdoor music festivals with his airplanes that flew for upwards of 10 minutes before they would actually finally land. And somebody wrote recently in a newspaper that he was sort of like Zelig, and he really was. It was an accurate depiction, I think, of who Tim was, the ability to be in many places at once. And I always wondered how much Tim could hear, and if he ever actually heard music as fully hearing people hear it. And I asked him once by writing down on a piece of paper how much he could hear, and he wrote down some decibel statistic, and I didn't know really what it meant. And then I asked him how come he didn't carry a notebook with him to communicate, and he shrugged his shoulders. He didn't write anything down. And I thought, well, what is it about music that appeals to a deaf man? And I thought about when I enjoy music, it's not just because of the music, but because suddenly there's a communal experience going on. People feel like they're in the presence of something real and moving. And so the feeling in that room that comes from the music is almost more important than the music itself. And I think Tim picked up on that and thrived on it. So his hearing ultimately was not as much of a deterrent to his ability to enjoy music as for some of us. And I also wondered I didn't understand what he was saying 98% of the time. But I pretty much knew, roughly the nature of what he was saying. But I thought about the various details and just the minor things that all of us will sometimes argue about or discuss, just the finest points of things that we get caught up in. And I thought, well, he was spared some of the complexity and the nature of that. We're almost like trapped sometimes, having to hash things out that are minor. And he was operating on a level that was a little bit more sort of real, I think. He wasn't bogged down by some of the stuff that some of us are confronted with every day. So I envied him in that way, and you could just tell by looking at him that he found a way to live in this world. And I didn't envy him at all, really, but at least not his. I wouldn't want to lose my hearing. I can't imagine it. And I'm amazed at some of the people here who are hearing impaired, how eloquently they speak. It blows my mind. But I'll miss Tim. And I know most of you will too. That's it.
I saw Tim at the store. So I would see him at the store, at the River Valley Market, and he'd be looking around and he'd see something, and there was a big picture there, and he'd say, hey, look at this, what's going on, and there was a picture. And so I'd look at it, and we talk about this, and he'd say, I'm volunteering there, I'm going to help out, and you should go, and you can see it, it's great. So that's what I would remember about Tim, how you announce all those things to me. Thank you.
Hello, O'Neill. I'm the manager of this place, and I just had a couple of things I want to say about Tim that I remember and what the impressions that he left me with. I would see Tim almost every day. Almost every day he'd come in and say hi, give me a pound, boom, load up. Tell me about a band, no matter what I was doing, could be working, could be standing around, very busy. And he'd just kind of wait until I had a moment, do the same thing, boom. Then he'd go in the kitchen, say hello to everyone in there, give him a fist pound, and maybe try to go make himself a sandwich or something. He'd say, Tim, please just do a little while. I think Tim was more a force of nature in a way, in how he created connection. And if you look around at the people that are here, different ages, backgrounds, he brought us together in a way that I think is very special, that I think we should all take a little bit of that spirit with us away today. And I'd also think of how he lived his life filled with art, filled with music, filled with food, and enjoyment. And another thing that struck me is how he would just take the simplest thing, an ice cream sundae, and just enjoy it, and just the expression on his face when he ate it was like it was the first one he'd ever had. It was awesome. And he would have that expression about every show he'd come to, everything he saw. He just enjoyed everything in life. And to the family, I think you should know that we didn't really just accept Tim. He kind of created a place for himself in us. And it was never a thing where we just accepted him or he was kind of just the guy hanging around. He created a place, a very special place in all of our hearts. And so you should just know that if you ever see somebody giving a fist pound to anybody on the street, that's a little tribute to your family. Thanks.
My name is George Balsey, and hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm here to say a few things that maybe many of you already know about Tim and his life. First, you realize that he was an actor, a true actor. He participated in the community theater for the deaf with me and a few other people, my wife. And we'd get together in Springfield and pick him up at his home. I think that was his parents' home, was that it? It was near Smith College. We pick him up also, and then we drive to practice, and then we go back and forth there. And he was very, very excited about acting and expressing himself. Maybe the best time to see him to express himself was then, because you'd really know who he is, and he would bring part of that. Sign Me Alice, one play he was in, and that play was similar to My Fair Lady. This was the deaf version and the signing version, and they say Alice. That was a big part of that show. So the second year we went back again, and there was another play called Hands. And we perform it in Springfield. And then when I'd pick him up to perform at the community theater competition, I would remember where I thought was 6 Williston. I think it was at Williston. I'm not sure if that's where it was. I'm old myself, so I can't remember. But I'm trying to think exactly, and he was in that play. And Tim performed on a motorcycle. And the other actor was performing with him, was leading on a motorcycle, and they were pretending they were driving back and forth next to each other with the mask on. And Tim's expressions were just like so great. And that won him the Best Supporting Actor in the Community Theater in 1981. And I think we were all shocked that Tim won that for all the community theater. He was really, it really just made him brighten up and express himself, and he shined. And that was what I wanted to tell you mostly about Tim. Thank you.
My name is Bob Williams. I was a doorman here at the Horse for a number of years, and I worked at different venues all over town. And there's a couple of stories I wanted to share about him because it really, I think these two stories demonstrate like why there are so many people here today. The first one is the first time I worked the door here at the Horse. It was 2002. And I'm standing at the door, and I've got my little paper with all my numbers on it. I've got my cash for the, the change and whatnot. And people are coming in, they're paying me. All of a sudden, this guy walks in, this little guy walks in and goes, "Hey!" He walks right by, and he shoots in the crowd. I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like, it's my first day in the door, right? I'm like, "Oh my God!" So I go running over, and I grab the I'm like, "Hey, there's that guy over there, he didn't pay. I gotta, what do I do? Do I grab him up, Jack?" And Neil goes, "No, that's Tim, he doesn't pay." I'm like, why doesn't Tim pay? He goes, "I don't know." I'm like, "Yeah, you've been working here since Clinton. You don't know why he paid?" "I have no idea." And every time I would work here, like every single show, didn't matter what was going on, Tim walked, "Hey, saw Tim." Come walking to the other one. Every once in a while when you're working the door, it just gets to here, and you just absolutely lose your mind. And I'm standing outside, and this guy's been, busting my chops. I finally just lose it. We're screaming at each other out on the sidewalk. I mean, we're just screaming at each other. We're like nose to nose. We're just, vitriol. Just, ah! Tim walks over, and I'm literally yelling at this guy right in his face. "Ah!" Tim walks over, taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, "What?" He goes, "There's a show over at the 11th. You gotta come over." I'm like, "Okay, I'll see you over there." And like me and this guy just kind of looked at each other. We're like, "Okay." Because at one moment, because no matter what you're doing, no matter who you were, Tim accepted you. Absolutely without reservation, he accepted you, who you were, what you were doing, that you were an automatic assumption that you were okay. And that's what Tim gave us. That was his gift to us. That's why Tim got in free. I figured it out. That's why Tim got in free.
Hi, my name is Jazz Tupelo. I'm a DJ at the River. I also work for WHMP. I lived here back in the 90s and moved away for many years. And then got the opportunity to come back. And I always loved Northampton. I knew I wanted to move back here. But it's difficult when you come back to a place. Is it going to be the same? Are you going to have, same friends? And I remember Tim back in the 90s because I used to work at the Northampton box office a long time ago. I was involved in the music scene then. And I remember coming back here and seeing him again And I didn't know his name at that point. I just recognized his face from all the shows we've been to together. And slowly but surely, Tim started to recognize me as well. And I remember just feeling really happy about that. And then, you know, the first time I got the fist bump again, of course, is just such a great feeling. I felt like, yeah, I'm home. And when he would come up to me and tell me what was going on, I mean, I knew what was going on, but he'd still always tell me something that I didn't know was going on. So that was good. There's a song that we're playing now, and the band's actually coming to Pearl Street. Great band, you should see it on November 21st. Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. They have this song called Home. It's a love song, but I think there's a greater context. It says home is wherever I'm with you. And Tim definitely made this our home. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Seiss. I'm going to try signing a little. I first met Tim at Pace in East Hampton, where we were both volunteers, and he would always show up and volunteer there. You just see him there. Some nights I'd see him show up at a show there, and then he'd say, oh, I'm going for a strike now in Northampton at the Calvin. When I started studying sign language at HCC, and so I asked him, he said, you sign? And he said, yes. So he started practicing sign with me. And so then I started seeing him around town, and because I'm a sound engineer, I see him at all the shows around. We talk about music, and of course he'd tell me about the shows. And then he told me about the signing group at Haymarket, and so I started going to that and practicing sign there. And he showed me how accepting the signing community can be, which is so wonderful. Not only just him, but the whole signing community and how accepting they are. And then now I'm a student at Smith College, and I would see him at Smith and he'd walk by and we'd say hi. And since he's been gone, I keep thinking I see him on the corner of my eye. I keep thinking he's there. But I thank him for being so accepting of everyone in so many walks of life.
Hi, my name is Tina Plant. I first met Tim at our church, Tabernacle Baptist, and with a friendly smile as he gives everybody every time. And he's encouraged me to interpret and sign in our church, and he'd always sit in that front pew and sometimes critique me, but that was okay because he did it in love. We're going to miss him at our church. He has that special spot in the front row, and we'll miss him deeply. And I know that why Tim had that smile on his face all the time is because he loved Jesus so much, and he wanted to be like him, and he wanted to share God's love. And for that, I know he would want all of you to know that feeling that he had inside of his heart, and that was God's love. And he would want you to seek him out as well, and to learn who Jesus is and why it made him so fulfilled inside of his heart and his life. And it's amazing to see all the people here and to know how many people he touched. And he would always email me and send emails of all the happenings of either something for interpreting so I could learn some more, or to go to HCC because he always wanted me to be certified and learn more. And maybe someday I might pursue that just on his behalf because he just wanted it so bad, and he just touched so many people. But he also knew that I loved horses, and he'd send me every information there was about the equine fair from the time that it ended to the time it started again, because he was going to be at that door waiting to greet me when I went to the equine fair. And I will miss him at that this coming year in November. And I just want to thank you all for loving him as much as we did.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pablo Iglesias. I'm a DJ, and I'll say how Timmy used to say.
Terrific in this community. And I also want to say that I was very happy to, over the last week, and especially today, meet Tim's family members, which kind of completed the entire circle and really got a better understanding of what Tim's life was about and truly who Tim was. A machine has value only as it produces more than it consumes, so check your value to the community. Timmy in this community was simply amazing. He was everywhere, every night, 7 days a week. And I sometimes had to look twice because I'd see him in Holyoke, Springfield, Amherst, and then I'd see him again here in the venues. The following morning, we'd see him out. I can't remember the first time I met Tim. I know it was a number of years ago, probably close to 20. But as I took the Iron Horse over in '95, I seem to think that I saw Timmy first thing in the morning and definitely every evening, probably for much of the last 14 or 15 years. When I lived in town, I saw Timmy almost every morning, pretty much the first person I saw, Timmy and or Al. And I'll talk about that relationship in a minute. And definitely in the evenings, I saw Timmy most nights, sometimes as I left the venues. Long after the music had finished, Timmy was typically there with us in a very special way, just about every evening, helping in some way or another, whether it was sweeping or trash, moving chairs, helping Al getting set up for the next show, the evening prior to the show. There's just really too much to talk about. And I still find myself, as many of us that work with him on a daily basis find ourselves looking around the corners because he moved so quickly, doing his job in a way that no one else could do that job. At the Calvin, Timmy would start doing some of the trash detail long before the show ended. And it was sometimes just a hand gesture or a motion of the eye where he'd walk in after being all around town. He knew the exact moment to come in. He'd look at me and I would just go like this, and he'd know that he could start in a certain area even though the show was going. He'd start in the cafe areas, in the entry areas. As soon as the show finished, he knew exactly where to begin. If the balcony wasn't full, he'd start at the upper balcony. If the balcony was full, he'd start at the bathrooms. He found a way to get started, and he was finished. And long before anyone would even start, Timmy had begun his task, and we'll have no one that can replace that, because we've tried over the last month, and I can tell you, there's way too many stories, and I think some appropriate, some not so appropriate. A few funny stories. You know, Northampton, when they abolished smoking in all the venues, there was a period of time where some establishments were fighting the establishment and were allowing people to smoke. And there was a fine system, and there were certain people that were responsible on the city side for making certain that there was written fines that were given to certain establishments. No one could quite figure out who was coming into the venues and getting, giving a list to the city or who that smoking cessation person was. And I think I may have been the only person other than that office and that department that knew. And other than a few people that I told the story to over the last month, I found out through a mole in the city that it was actually Timmy, because he went to like 40 establishments. Usually on Mondays, the list would be submitted to the city, and then the fine system would start. No one really knew that. If they did, he probably wouldn't have been as welcome. When I found that out, I actually confronted Tim because I was concerned with my own venues. As we did, the Iron Horse was always non-smoking, Pearl Street wasn't, and there'd be a few people that would always tend to smoke, usually the performers. And I was concerned that we would be turned in, so I pulled him aside and I let him know that I knew. And that's when it stopped. No lists that went into the city. He was embarrassed because he did turn red. That was the only communication that we ever had on that subject. And there were many other funny situations, as Bob had mentioned at the door here. No one ever really knew. Timmy would just come into all the venues, never paid for a ticket. And when I first met him, and again, I don't really remember when it was that I first met him, but we never even looked to charge him. He'd come to any show he wanted to come to, and he found his special place with us, and then started doing other odd jobs and tasks in the morning on the real estate side with Al, and really was just an important part of our team who is going to be missed beyond belief.